It's late, I know, but I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we're going somewhere hot, loud, and very much alive until it isn't. This is the story of Pompeii before the eruption. Not the fire and brimstone part. Not yet. First, the daily grind, the crowded baths, the eye-watering smells, the public spectacles, and the strange, dirty poetry scratched into stone. It's about a town teetering at the edge of something no one saw coming. If you find yourself listening all the way through, maybe subscribe, but only if it feels right. And if you're awake enough, tell me where you're listening from, or what time it is. Now dim the lights, and let's drift back in time. You wake up before dawn. You didn't sleep well, not that you ever do. The air is thick and heavy, clinging to your skin like someone else's breath. You roll over on your straw-stuffed mattress, already sweating. Outside, the alley is coming to life. You can hear the groan of the baker's shutters, the clatter of a mule cart grinding past with wheels too wooden and too loud. Somewhere close, someone is arguing about wine. You don't want to get up, but you do. The floor is cold, stone worn smooth by thousands of other feet, some barefoot, some leather-sandaled, some bleeding. You step carefully. There's rat droppings in the corner. You tell yourself you'll clean it later. You won't. Out in the street, the city is already halfway through its morning. Pompeii never really sleeps. Not entirely. The public bathhouse opens early. You think about going, mostly for the gossip, the warm water, the pretend privacy, but first breakfast. There is no kitchen in your cramped two-room dwelling. You eat what you have. Yesterday's bread soaked in watered wine. You hate garam-fermented fish sauce that smells like a crime, but you eat it anyway. Because it's what you have, and because, God's help you, you're starting to like it. Like everyone else. Even children. They sell it by the jar in the forum, thick and brown and putrid. It's in everything. The street stinks of it. That, and human waste, and donkey sweat, and sometimes used sulfur. No one talks about the smell, but everyone breathes it. The walls along the street are painted red, though it's fading. Plaster peels in patches, exposing older layers, older ads. One sign offers a reward for a lost cloak. Another, in clumsy Latin, insults a local politician's anatomy. There's graffiti everywhere. It's how the city talks to itself, how it gossips, slanders, flirts. Someone scrawled a love note beside your doorway 2 nights ago. You think you know who it was. You think you don't mind. You pass by the bakery. The smell is sweet and warm. Bread loaves round and scored, marked with the baker's seal like little edible tombstones. A slave boy sweeps ashes out of the oven with a stick longer than he is tall. You nod to him. He doesn't nod back. You're nobody. He's nobody. That's how it works. Someone yells something about the amphitheater, about games coming soon. There will be blood in the sand, and the crowd will cheer, and the animals will die scared. You might go, you might not. Because it's just another day. It's always just another day. But the ground felt strange last night. You didn't dream it. You never dream anymore. You lie awake and listen to the mountain groan. You pretend it's just wind. Today, you will pretend again. You make your way through the tangled streets toward the baths. The path is never direct. Pompeii was built like a body, not a grid veins and arteries. Alleys like ribs, corners that feel more like elbows than logic. The paving stones are slick from the morning rinse, water poured from doorways and chamber pots alike. You step carefully. You've slipped before. Everyone has. The stones remember. The sun is creeping up over the rooftops now, hitting the facades just right, turning cracked plaster golden. On some walls, the paintings still gleam Venus rising from the sea, Hercules wrestling something into submission, gods with eyes that follow you when you're not watching. But not all the art is divine. Some of it is just business. One doorway you pass is marked with a painted phallus and a price list. You don't look too long, not because it shocks you, nothing shocks you, but because you know the woman who works there. She braids your hair sometimes, when the lice get bad. Everyone here has side hustles, even the gods. At the bathhouse, you pay a small fee to a boy who doesn't look old enough to spell his own name. He stamps your hand with ink that won't last the day. He doesn't make eye contact. He doesn't need to. You're not here to be remembered. The entrance smells like wet limestone and cheap perfume. Inside, it's worse, like warm skin and secrets. The walls echo everything. Laughter, whispering, water lapping against tile. Voices bounce in languages you don't speak. Someone from the east is humming a tune you half know. The frigidarium is quiet, cold, and vaguely hostile. You don't linger. The caldarium is better thick with steam and the sounds of low conversation. This is where the important things happen. Not in temples, not in senate halls. Here, men with bellies and opinions discuss trade routes, debts, who's in debt to whom. A woman whispers something about a magistrate's wife and a freedman with green eyes. Another jokes about the senator who tried to bathe in olive oil, thinking it would reverse his aging. You soak in the warmth, in the voices, in the knowledge that even the powerful sit naked here. And then there is silence. A faint tremor, just enough to stir the water in the basin. A single ripple. No one mentions it, but the room holds its breath. You breathe in steam and stare at the vaulted ceiling. The cracks weren't there last year, or maybe they were, and you're only just seeing them now. It's quiet again. Normal resumes. Someone laughs too loudly. Someone else slaps another's back and says something about oysters. But it stays with youth, that ripple. You dry off and leave without looking back. Outside, a seller offers you a fig. You buy one. It tastes like honey and rot. The sun is higher now, and the mountain looms, as always, too close and too quiet. It's just another morning in Pompeii, but the city feels ... awake, not alive, not dead, just ... watching. You're not supposed to touch the frescoes, but everyone does. Your fingers still carry the wetness of the bathhouse. When you pause beside a wall near the forum, one of the better preserved ones, vibrant even in the glare of midday sun, it shows a myth or a version of one. A woman with braided hair stands beside a lion, or maybe a god wearing a lion. Her face is half peeled away, the paint flaking like old scabs. The wall doesn't care that you're here, but you trace her anyway, just briefly. You feel the grit of old paint under your fingertip. It makes you feel something you can't name. Pompeii is full of these half-preserved prayers temples without roofs. Altars with cracked offerings, walls with old slogans fading under newer ones. If you read carefully, you can tell when the city was hopeful, when it was angry, when it was drunk. You pass a tavern. Inside, the air is thick with wine and sweat and regret. A man leans over a table, muttering something about taxes and his wife and the price of barley. You think about going in, but your coins are few, and your stomach is already full of bad bread and cheap sauce. So you keep walking. The street dogs have learned to sleep where the carts won't run them over. They know the rhythms of this place better than the people. One raises its head as you pass, eyes milky, ribs visible. You toss it a crust. It does not wag, it just eats. You remember, for a moment, that there was a quake. Not the little shiver in the bathhouse, but a real one, 17 years ago. People still talk about it, quietly, like it was something shameful. Back then, they said it was just nature, or the gods, or maybe both. Temples fell, statues cracked. Some people left and never came back. Others rebuilt, right on top of the rubble. Pompeii has always done that. It builds on its own bones. You stop at a doorway that looks familiar. Not because you've been inside, but because you've seen its graffiti. Lucia loves Primus, someone wrote. The letters clumsy, almost childlike. But someone else scratched underneath, in a sharper hand. Primus loves no one. There's another layer now, fresher still. Just 2 words, all gone. You don't know who wrote it. Maybe no one does. It's just a wall, but it remembers. Above you the mountain waits, always there, like a father who stopped speaking, but still watches. No one talks about it, not really, not out loud. But it's in the way people look up too often. In the way mothers keep children closer than they used to. In the way you tell yourself you'll leave someday, ... But never do, because where would you go? This is your city. Sulfur in your lungs, ash on your sandals, stories in the walls. You live here, and you will die here. But not today, probably. The forum is already choking with voices by the time you get there. Not the deep, formal echoes of senators or priests. Those come later, if they come at all, but the raw, everyday clamor of people trying to survive each other. Vendors shout over one another like rival gods, each declaring their product divine. A butcher lifts a limp goose by the neck and calls it tender. A spice seller lets cinnamon fall slowly through his fingers, as though it's worth more than the denarius he'll beg for. A man with no teeth offers you a handful of olives, still slick with oil, and tells you they're sacred. You believe none of them, but you keep walking. Not because you're in a hurry, but because if you stop, they'll smell it on you. That you're uncertain, that you might spend. A child grabs your wrist. Not a pickpocketat, least not today. Just a girl with eyes like burnt glass, selling wax figurines of the gods. Venus with tooth-in arms, Apollo with one leg shorter than the other, Vulcan barely more than a lump of wax with eyes pressed in. She doesn't speak, just holds them up like offerings. You give her a coin and take Jupiter. He melts slightly in your hand. She doesn't smile. The air is thick, not just with heat, but with something older. The scent of myrrh and animal blood, pressed flowers, old shoes. You breathe it in and try not to choke. A fight breaks out near the grain stall. A man swears his weight was cheated. The vendor swears on his mother's grave. They scuffle, half-hearted, like 2 men too tired to be angry but too proud to stop. A centurion walks past and doesn't even slow down. Some laws are written in scrolls, others in calesses. You spot someone you know. Not a friend, exactly. No one has time for real friendship anymore. Just someone whose face you've seen enough to nod at. You do. He nods back. You don't speak. You once shared a woman. Not at the same time, but close enough. Neither of you ever mentioned it. You buy some dates. They're overripe, sticky, sweet, in a way that feels wrong for morning. The seller offers a smile that doesn't touch his eyes. His hands are bandaged. You don't ask why. He doesn't offer. Somewhere nearby, a priestess is burning incense and praying too loudly. You can't tell which god she's shouting for. Maybe none of them. Maybe all of them. The gods here are crowded, contradictory, territorial. One wrong offering and your house might burn, or your crops might rot. or your husband might come home. You find a place to sit in the shade of a crumbling colonnade. It's not quiet, but it's less loud. You chew your dates and let your mind float. The mountain is visible from here. You can see the curve of it behind the city's roofs. It's a beautiful shape, the kind you'd paint on a wall if you were wealthier or more patient. Someone once said it used to snow there. You don't believe them. A tremor rolls under your feet, small like a hiccup. The marble column beside you hums. No one reacts. You finish your dates. You lick your fingers. And you go back to pretending everything is fine. Afternoon has no beginning in Pompeii. It seeps in, quietly, like a fever. You notice it first in the stillness, the way people start speaking slower, the way even the animals retreat into shade. Time in this city doesn't tick forward. It gathers, like heat, like dust, like silence. You return home through a different path. Everyone does. The streets change you. And they themselves are always slightly changing. Stones shifted, carts abandoned, a new heap of rubble where none should be. It's easy to get lost in a city this old, especially when the walls whisper and the doors don't always lead where they used to. Your doorway is hot to the touch when you return. The air inside your home is thicker than outside, as if the walls are still exhaling from the morning sun. You pour water over your neck, your wrists. It's warm already. You sit. This is when it's hardest. Midday, the hours that stretch like a wound. You're not hungry, you're not tired, but you're something. In the corner of the room is a small altar. Most homes have one. Yours is modest, 2 little clay figures and a blackened dish where you burned offerings that once mattered more to you. You haven't replaced the laurel sprigs in weeks. They've curled into themselves, brittle and yellow. You light a bit of oil anyway, out of habit or defiance. The smoke curls upward. The flame flickers. It does not answer. Outside, somewhere, someone is playing a reed flute. The notes are slow, halting. Not beautiful, exactly, but familiar. You wonder if they're practicing or remembering. You lie down. Above you, the ceiling is cracked. You like to imagine the crack looks like a river, winding its way from one beam to another. Sometimes, when you're not sleeping, you follow it with your eyes, tracing its path again and again, as if it might eventually lead you out, but it never does. There are no clocks here, only routines. You rise with noise and rest with heat. You eat when others eat. You listen for when the market closes, when the lamps are lit, when the brothels open. Even the hours have their own smells, the oily smoke of lunch, the vinegar of wine spilled in haste, the lavender that someone across the way burns just before dusk. Your neighbor sings, sometimes, not well, but with commitment. You've never seen her face, but you know she has a limp, and that she curses often, and that she once sang a hymn so sad it made you cry. You never told her. You don't talk to your neighbors much, not because you dislike them, but because it's hard to know where a conversation will take you. And everyone here is afraid of what they might say if they talk too long. There is a quiet fear in Pompeii, not panic, not hysteria, just ... wariness. Like the city knows something it won't admit. You've felt it, haven't you? That ache in your chest that doesn't belong to you. That heavy stillness in the bones of the walls. That sense that you're waiting, but for something unspeakable. They say Vesuvius has been quiet for centuries. That it is sacred, blessed by gods you no longer worship. But yesterday, a jug cracked on the shelf for no reason. And today, the water in the fountain behind the bathhouse tasted ... off. You try not to think about it, about how many birds are gone, about how the dogs howl at nothing. You close your eyes and tell yourself, it's just summer, just heat, just life. The incense still burns. The ceiling still cracks. The city still breathes. And for now, ... so do you. There are richer homes than yours, of course. Pompeii has always had its layers, shopkeepers and slaves, its poets and bakers, its widows and women who wear too much gold. But at the very top of this soft pile of humanity sit places like the House of the Faun. You've never been inside, not properly, not as a guest, but you've lingered near it. You've watched from the street as slaves swept the mosaic floors, their bodies bent like question marks over ancient stories etched in tiny stone. You've pressed your ear to the wall when you were younger, before you knew that some houses do not like to be listened to. The House of the Faun is a city within a city, columns thick as tree trunks, gardens too symmetrical to be natural, murals of mythical beasts and dying warriors, painted with the kind of care that people reserve only for pain or glory. They say a general lived here once, or a merchant who thought he was a general. Either way, someone with enough power to confuse the two. There is a statue in the courtyard, satyr frozen mid-dance, body twisted like laughter. The faun, it's said to bring luck, or mischief, or both. You saw it once, when the gate was open. It looked back at you, not in a metaphorical way, not in the way that art looks back, echoing the viewer's soul. No, it looked at you, eyes of bronze, smile like a secret. Feet planted not on the floor, but in Itas, though he'd grown from the earth itself. You didn't stay long, you never do. But some days, you circle the block more than once, just to feel its gravity. These homes, these grand places with their impluviums and frescoed atriums, they are tombs for the living. You've heard their owners at parties. Laughter too loud. Guests too drunk. Conversations thick with envy. No one seems happy inside them, only permanent. They build walls not to keep the world out, but to remind it how little it matters. You pass by again today. The door is open, not wide, but enough to tempt. You glance in, just long enough to see light bouncing off mosaic floors. A lizard scurries across the stones. Somewhere inside, water drips in a rhythm too slow for comfort. You wonder who lives here now, or if anyone really does, because even the richest homes in Pompeii feel transient. The earth beneath them shifts. The walls lean slightly more each year. Even the painted gods on the plaster seem tired. You walk on, past the laughter, past the gossip, past the smell of honey cakes baking in courtyards you will never enter. You touch the wall as you go, gently, as if to say, I see you. The faun doesn't answer, but you hear music, faint and far away, a flute, maybe, or something older. And just for a second, you can't tell if it's coming from behind you or beneath your feet. You find yourself near the bakery again. There are more than 30 in the city, one for nearly every hunger. But this one is special. Not because the bread is better. It isn't. It's dry and dense and stamped with the same emblem every day. A sunburst, cracked and fading. But it's yours, or it used to be. You worked here once, long ago, before your hands began to tremble and your knees began to hurt, before you learned what silence can cost you. The ovens still burn. You can feel their heat from the street. They are wide, cavernous, black with old flour and soot. Men disappear into them, bare-chested and fast. They move like ghosts through rising steam. The kind of movement that speaks not of joy, but of repetition. Inside, the kneading never stops. The dough is beaten, folded, scolded. The bakers do not look at you. not because they are rude, but because you are the past. You remember the weight of the wooden paddle, the ache in your shoulder, the way ash would cling to your skin and stay there even after the bathhouse. You remember the night you overcooked an entire batch, and the owner made you eat the crusts until your gums bled. He's dead now, fell into the harbor drunk. No one misses him. His son runs the place. Not kinder, just quieter. You buy a loaf anyway, out of habit, out of memory, out of something like guilt. He doesn't charge you full price, but he doesn't smile either. There's something about bakeries in Pompeii, something sacred. The Romans believe fire is divine, that Vulcan watches the hearth, judges your worth by how you tend to flame, that each loaf is a prayer, each burn a warning. You never believed in Vulcan, but you always respected the oven. As you walk away, the bread warm in your arms, you think of how many mornings started here, how many hands have shaped these loaves, how many mouths have chewed this same exact taste, and you think of how quickly they will all vanish. Bread doesn't last. Not really. Even if you bake it perfectly, stamp it, store it, time will win. You once heard of a philosopher who said bread is proof that man can bend nature, that to take grain, grind it, burn it, and eat it is a small defiance of chaos. You don't remember his name, but you think about him every time you watch the loaves come out too early, too hard, too black. Someone shouts from down the street something about a shipment of Egyptian glass, or maybe a stolen chicken. It's hard to tell. The voices blur. You pass a man drinking alone, crouched in the shadow of a broken fountain. He cradles a piece of bread in both hands like an offering, or an apology. He looks up, catches your eye, and says, "It didn't rise today." You nod. None of them do. The sun begins to lean westward, casting Pompeii in a longer kind of light, soft, golden, and vaguely dishonest. Shadows stretch like gossip across the streets, and suddenly everything seems slower, older, closer to crumbling. You drift toward the theater, not because you meant to, but because the city is small, and the gravity of performance draws even the most reluctant. Pompeii has two, one grand, with a semicircular stage and high seats cut into stone, a place for tragedy and official laughter. The other is smaller, more intimate, meant for mimes, satire, things less noble but more human. You choose the smaller one. It's not in use today. There are no performances scheduled. The last one ended in shouting a poorly veiled insult aimed at a local magistrate, delivered by a masked actor who has not been seen since. Still, the stage is there. The air still smells faintly of oil lamps and makeup. You slip inside through the colonnade, where ivy threatens to unmake the order of architecture. The space is quiet, echoing. Every whisper multiplies until you feel surrounded by ghosts. You sit. The stone is cold, worn down by hundreds of posteriors, none of which belonged to people more important than the present. You run your fingers along the seating grooves, feel the names scratched there: lovers, performers, drunks, desperate scribblers, trying to make themselves permanent. One etching says, "Marcia laughed here," that's all. No date, no context, just the assertion that once, in this very spot, someone named Marcia let joy escape. You wonder if she ever came back. The stage is empty, but you imagine it alive. A man in a grotesque mask pretending to die in the most elaborate way. A woman too beautiful to be real, weeping beneath artificial rain. The crowd roaring, not because they believe, but because they want to. Pompeii loves pretending. Even outside the theater, masks are worn. You see it every day. The slave pretending not to feel pain, the merchant pretending to believe in his own prices, the wife pretending her husband will change. Even you. You pretend not to notice the cracks in the walls, the way the birds have flown inland, away from the sea, the way your dreams now end not in sleep, but in silence. You rise and walk down toward the stage. You've never stood on it before. It feels wrong, sacred in a small, forgotten way. From here, you can see the whole space, the curved rows of seats, like an open mouth, waiting to be fed stories. You whisper something, nothing important, just your name. It echoes back at you in pieces, as if the theater, too, is unsure you still belong here. You step off the stage. Outside, the wind picks up, and for a moment, it smells like smoke. Not the cooking kind, the other kind. The kind that comes when the gods are deciding something. You shake it off. You head back toward the main road. As you leave, you glance over your shoulder, and you wonder who will perform last in this place, and if anyone will be there to clap. Evening in Pompeii comes like a memory you weren't expecting. There's a gentleness to it, if you catch it just right. The moment when the vendors quiet their shouting, when the scent of roast meat begins to overtake the stink of latrines, when the children stop screaming and start mumbling lullabies to each other in that odd way children do, as if they're singing themselves out of existence. You pass a temple, one of many. It doesn't matter which god. They all blend together now. This one is half cracked, half empty. A column leans slightly forward, like it's trying to whisper a warning to the street. A garland of flowers brown with age, brittle with sunstill, clings to one of the doorposts. A pigeon has taken residence on the altar. Inside, the floor is layered with the traces of people who used to believe. Candle wax pooled in corners, dried blood from some unlucky chicken, a coin wedged into a crack in the stone, too thin to be worth stealing. You stand just beyond the threshold. There's no priest in sight. Only a little girl lighting a small stick of incense, looking up like she's expecting someone to answer. She notices you and doesn't speak. She just keeps her eyes fixed on the statue above the altar, a once beautiful representation of Minerva. Her face now pocked with time, her arms both gone. Someone has tried to repaint her eyes. They're too blue, too wide. They don't blink. The girl places a fig at the statue's feet. Her hands tremble slightly. You don't know if it's from fear or hope. You don't ask. She walks past you without a sound, the way children in Pompeii are taught to when they're old enough to feel dread. You walk inside. The air is colder than it should be. Not refreshing, just indifferent. You remember being a child yourself, once, when these places felt like more than stone and echo, when you believed the gods were watching, weighing, whispering in the smoke. Now, all you feel is quiet. You speak a name in a name. Maybe your own, maybe one you haven't spoken in years. It does not echo. Instead, something shifts above. Not loud, not dangerous, just a whisper of dust falling from the ceiling. A pigeon ruffles its wings. The statue doesn't move, but the light flickers. You back away. Outside, the sky is beginning to burn. Purple, gold, fire. The kind of beauty that makes people forget how much they've already lost. Across the street, a man is trying to light a torch. He curses the wind, and above all of it, the mountain looms. Still quiet, still watching. You remember when someone told you it was a god, too. Older than the ones in the temples. Hungrier. You never believed them. But tonight, you aren't so sure. You turn away from the temple. You walk faster than you need to. And in the back of your mind, something ancient stirs. Not fear. Recognition. The streets are quieter now. Not silent. Pompeii doesn't do silence, but more subdued. The shouting has settled into murmurs, the music into fragments, and even the stray dogs seem less certain about who they're barking at. Somewhere, a door slams with unnecessary force. Somewhere else, someone is laughing too loudly, trying to convince the night they're not afraid. You walk past a woman pouring water over her doorstep, scrubbing at something invisible. She doesn't look up. You recognize the motion, furious, practiced, pointless. A gesture of control, of cleansing, of pretending. A boy runs by, barefoot, his tunic hitched up with a bit of string. He carries a broken doll in one hand and a piece of stolen fruit in the other. He looks back once, eyes wide not with guilt, but with the knowledge that someone saw him and didn't stop him. He disappears around a corner, trailing dust. You stop. There's a sound you can't place, faint, metallic, like a bell, but not ringing, just resonating. You wait, but it fades. Maybe it was in your head, or in the stone. You keep walking. There's a wine shop near your street. Nothing special, but it's always open. The owner is missing 3 fingers on one hand, and has a voice like gravel soaked in vinegar. You step inside without speaking. He nods, already pouring. You sit at a low wooden table. The bench rocks slightly under your weight. You like that it does. The wine is cheap, thin, but it burns just enough. 2 other people are in the room. A man with his eyes closed, humming a song you half recognize, and a woman tracing patterns in spilled wine with her fingertip. No one speaks. This is what evenings are for, now. Not conversation, not celebration, just endurance. You sip, you listen. You feel the mountain through the soles of your feet. It's like standing on something that's not quite sleeping. The woman beside you mutters something. You look over. She's older than she seemed. Her hands are marked with years, not jewelry. She doesn't meet your gaze, but she says, without moving her mouth much, "There were birds here. Do you remember? You do, or you think you do. There were so many," she says, "but not anymore." You nod, and then, because it feels safe here in this broken, rocking bench, you say it aloud. "The dogs won't eat." She exhales, slow and tight. "No, they won't." Neither of you says what it means. The man with closed eyes begins to sing, low and broken. A song about the sea, or maybe death, or maybe both. The wine burns less now, or maybe your mouth is numb. Outside, the stars are beginning to push through the smoke-hazed sky. The city glows not brightly, not confidently, but like a coal that's almost out. You leave the shop. The owner nods. You don't pay. You will tomorrow, if there is one. You step into the night. The air is thick. You hear a baby crying, a cart creaking, a woman whispering a prayer in a language no one speaks anymore. And under it all, the breath of the earth, shallow, waiting. Sleep doesn't come. It never does when the wind is wrong. And tonight, the wind smells of stone, not dust stone, a sharper scent. Old, metallic, like something buried for too long and now pulled gasping to the surface. So you go walking. This time, you choose the long route, toward the edge of town, past the gates, past the livestock pens and the oil presses and the homes that grow smaller, poorer, quieter the further you get from the forum. This is the part of Pompeii that most citizens forget exists. The skeleton hand beneath the painted sleeve, the parts that don't make it onto the murals. You follow the sound of dripping. There's an aqueduct here, part of the one that feeds the city. It's nothing grand, just a stone channel fed by distant hills, shadowed by cypress and rumour. But tonight, it feels like the spine of something, as if the whole town's body hangs off this vein of water, pumping quietly under the skin. You lean down, dip your fingers in. It's cold, too cold. The kind of cold that lives in caves, in crevices, in teeth. You taste it. Just a drop. It tastes wrong. Not poisoned, not foul, just unsettled, as if it doesn't know where it's been. You hear a noise, not from the aqueduct, from beyond it, from beneath it, a rumble, not loud, not even deep. A soft groan, like a floorboard beneath an old god's foot. You freeze. It passes. You tell yourself it was wind, a fox, a trick of water on stone. You tell yourself many things. You look up at the sky. The stars are still there, but fewer now, washed out by some haze. You can't tell if it's cloud or ash or something else entirely. You can't smell smoke, but you can't smell much at all. You used to come here with someone, long ago, a man who carved birds into rocks while you watched. He told you once that water remembers things people don't, that aqueducts carry more than water. They carry prayers and regrets. You hadn't believed him then. Now you think he might have known something. You sit by the channel and run your hand along its edge. The stone is smooth, worn by centuries of hands and seasons. There are faint carvings, still visible initials, symbols, someone's attempt at a fish. You touch one, a crude spiral, and for a moment you swear it's warm. You pull your hand back, laugh at yourself. It echoes, but too far for the walls around you. You stand, you don't run, but you don't linger. As you leave, you glance once over your shoulder, and in the reflection of the water, you think just for a moment you see something move. Not above, not behind, below. You return home just as the first glow of dawn begins to stain the rooftops. Not sunlight, something paler, sicklier, like a candle burned too long in a closed room. The shadows aren't gone. They've only changed angles. Everything is the same shade of uneasy. The city is waking up, or pretending to. You hear the familiar sounds, shutters thrown open, curses mumbled, a mule braying somewhere near the forum. The rhythm of survival played on cracked cobblestones and half-swallowed hope. But something's off. The pigeons, there are fewer today. You count them without meaning to. Your mind does it before your eyes can keep up. 3 on the red-tiled roof to the west. 2 on the bathhouse edge. Yesterday there were 11, maybe more. You pass an old man sweeping the steps of his shop. He doesn't look up, just mutters something about ash on the stones. You glance down. There's no ash, not yet, but the air feels full. You move faster. The mountain looms above the rooftops, its slope soft and familiar. You've seen it every day of your life. You've drawn it in the dirt as a child. You've drunk wine from its slopes, touched glass made from its sand. It's not a threat, it's a backdrop. A god, yes, but a quiet one, a sleeper. Today, though, you notice something. A line of smoke, thin, almost artistic, curling upward from the peak. You've seen that before, you think, or maybe not. It's hard to know which memories are real anymore. The mind bends to protect itself, like a tree in wind. You stop near the market square, where the statue of Apollo catches the first light. His face is cracked from an old tremor. His nose is gone. His eyes look like they've seen something and decided not to tell anyone. You look up at the mountain again, and this time you feel it. Not the tremor, not yet. the silence. That kind of silence that hums, that has shape, that leans into your bones. The children aren't laughing, the dogs aren't barking. Even the water in the fountains seems to hesitate. A woman beside you says something under her breath. You don't catch it. She's already gone. You walk to the edge of town. There's a high spot where the walls crumble and wildflowers grow. You used to come here as a teenager, dreaming of other cities. You thought you'd leave someday, thought you'd run. You never did. Now, you stand and look out at the mountain, and it's closer than you remember. It looks ... awake. Not angry, not violent, just aware, as if it's known you all along. Your footsteps, your fears, the way your breath catches at night, the way your hands shake when no one's looking. You take one step back, then two, but you don't run, because there's nowhere to run to. Pompeii is home, and the mountain is family. Later that day, you find yourself in the forum again, not because you have business, your errands could wait, or vanish entirely, but because the forum is where people drift when they don't know what else to do. It's not just a marketplace, it's a stage, a mirror, a rumor mill. It reflects the city's pulse better than any priest or politician. And today, it feels like a heart waiting to stop. You pass a group of women whispering, their arms folded tight across their bodies. Not in gossip, this isn't the lazy prattle of who slept with whom or who owes what. This is whispering meant to hide something from the air itself. Like if they speak too loudly, the mountain might hear them. One looks up at you. She opens her mouth, closes it. You nod. You don't ask. You move toward the edge of the square, to a stall selling ink and papyrus. You haven't written a letter in years. You've had no one to write to. But the stall-keeper, an old freedman with eyes like worn leather, recognizes you. He says nothing, just slides a blank sheet toward you. You sit at the edge of a crumbling fountain. The water is low today, and sluggish. A wasp skims its surface, then gives up. You dip the pen, and for a moment you don't know who to write to. Your mother's been dead for years, your long-gone friends scattered. Some into marriage, others into debts, a few into wine. You pick a name, anyway, to someone who will never read this. That's how you begin. You write slowly. The ink bleeds more than you remember. The letters shake. You don't write about the mountain, not directly. You don't say eruption or fire or ash. Those aren't words people use yet. Instead, you talk about little things. The crack in the ceiling above your bed. The taste of the water this morning, how it reminded you of wet coins. The silence in the theater. The way the birds are thinning, and no one will admit it. You sign your name, but only the first letter. It feels enough. It feels safer that way. You fold it carefully, press it between two stones beside the fountain. Not as an offering, not even as a secret, just to leave something behind. You look around. No one has noticed. Or maybe everyone has, and no one says a word. A child runs past, clutching a broken jug, barefoot and laughing the way only children can in total defiance of the world's cracks. You smile, despite yourself, and then you feel it. A tremor, small but long. It starts in your feet, rises into your ribs, lingers in your teeth. People stop moving. A cup rolls from a table. A dog begins to howl, not loud, not panicked, just one long, low note, and then silence again. The kind that doesn't leave when the sound does. You stand, walk quickly, but without panic. You do not look back at the letter. You already know no one will read it. Not now, not after. By mid-afternoon, Pompeii is louder again, but it's not the same loud. It's performative now, as if the entire city is staging a version of itself for the gods, hoping that by keeping up appearances, whatever is stirring beneath their feet might be fooled, or bribed, or bored. The vendors are louder, their hands more animated. The butcher slams his cleaver harder against the chopping block. The street performers by the baths shout their lines with too much cheer. Laughter rings out, but it's brittle, like glass that's already cracked. You recognize the sound because you've made it yourself. You walk through it all like a ghost unseen, or maybe just ignored. That's easier, sometimes. To let yourself fade at the edges. It keeps you safe, or at least numb. At the crossroads near the Temple of Jupiter, someone has set up a small altar, not official, not state-sanctioned, just a crate covered in cloth, with a bowl of figs and a small carved figure that could be any god or none. A few people kneel, not together, not in any order, like drunks who've tripped into prayer. You watch them for a moment, and you understand something. Pompeii knows. It doesn't say it. There are no proclamations, no frantic evacuations. The city doesn't scream. It doesn't weep. It simply folds the knowing into itself, quietly, like folding a letter and not sending it. You see it in the way people pause before entering doorways, in how they glance up at cracks in the plaster, in how the shopkeepers count their coins more slowly and sometimes forget the total. You walk past a couple arguing, their words hot and sharp, not about love or money or betrayal, but about whether to pack. The woman wants to leave. The man says she's being dramatic, that there have always been tremors, that the gods will protect them, that they have too much to carry. She throws something at his feet. You don't wait to see what happens next. You make your way toward the city's outer edge again, where the homes are smaller and the noise is less curated. Here, the truth leaks through more easily. You see a man tying his possessions to a donkey, slowly, as if trying not to look like he's fleeing. His daughter helps. She can't be more than 12. Her arms are full of pottery, purely made, but cherished. She stops when she sees you watching. There's no fear in her eyes, just understanding. You nod, she nods back, and they keep tying. Not everyone is leaving. Most aren't, but some are. Just a few. Just enough to feel like a rumor with legs. You return home as the sky begins to bleed color. The sunset is violent tonight, redder than usual. Too red, the kind of red that doesn't belong in the sky. The kind of red that means something, even if you don't know what. You lie down, but you don't sleep. You listen. To the street, to the wind, to the mountain. And beneath it all, you hear Pompeii whisper to itself, over and over. Not yet, not yet, not yet. The dawn that follows is not a dawn, it's something else. At first, you think it's simply early, the light arriving strangely, shadows bleeding in the wrong direction. But when you step outside, the air tells you otherwise. It's thicker now. Not with fog, not with smoke. Something in between, like a veil pulled too tightly across the city's face. The color is wrong too. A yellow-gray that stains rather than illuminates. It catches in your throat. It makes you blink more than usual. It turns every building into a silhouette, every person into a question mark. You rub your eyes. It doesn't go away. Others are outside too. They gather in 2s and 3s, looking up, not talking, not yelling, just ... staring. Even the ones who mocked the tremors, who swore the gods would sort it, are silent now. Because the mountain is no longer pretending. Above the rooftops, Vesuvius speaks. A column of smoke, real smoke now, thick and black and churning pours into the sky. It doesn't rise gently. It surges, like breath held too long and finally exhaled. It coils and swells and blooms, like something organic, something alive, and then sound, not loud, not yet. A low roar, not from above, from beneath. It moves through your feet, before your ears, and still, no one moves. You see a child start to cry. A woman lifts him without speaking. The child keeps crying. You hear a man say, quietly, "No one told us it would be today." And then he laughs. Not because it's funny, but because there's nothing else to do. The ash begins like rain, soft, dry, floating down in slow spirals, like snow that's forgotten how to land. It clings to your skin, your lashes, your breath. You taste it, bitter, ancient, final. The forum bells begin to ring. Not in rhythm, not with ceremony, just chaos. Someone is pulling them as if by instinct, as if noise might undo what's already begun. You walk, not run, toward the center of the city, because you don't know where else to go. No one does. The streets are thick with motion, people loading carts, people shouting names, people holding on to each other in that quiet, shaking way that says, "I don't want to die alone." And still others, still pretend. One woman adjusts the awning over her stall. Another throws water onto the cobblestones, trying to settle the ash. A boy sells bread at half price. The illusion of normalcy, even now, especially now. You reach the edge of the forum. A man is handing out jars of water. Another is writing on the wall. You read it as he finishes the last letter. "Forgive what we left undone." And then the sky growls. Not thunder, not voice, something deeper, closer. The kind of sound that doesn't just fill the air. It empties it. You look at the mountain one more time. It doesn't look back. It opens. The first thing you notice is how fast the dark arrives. It's not night, not even close. The sun was high just moments ago, or so it felt. But now the light is gone, stolen, swallowed whole by the sky above, which has turned not grey, not black, but the kind of color you only see in bruises and nightmares. A red that went sour, a darkness that moves. The ash doesn't float anymore. It falls, thicker, harder, faster, like rain made of bone and memory. You run now, not out of panic, exactly, just necessity. The way you run when the ceiling caves in, when the fire spills, when the truth can no longer be turned away from. Around you, Pompeii is unrecognizable. The forum is a tangle of carts, overturned, animals screaming, sandals lost in dust. You pass a man carrying 2 amphorae of wine and nothing else. A woman holding 3 loaves of bread and no children. Everyone is choosing what matters most, and everyone is wrong. The ash sticks to your skin, clogs your nose, your mouth. You keep spitting, but it doesn't stop. It tastes like metal, like something once alive. You pass the temple of Jupiter. A crack splits one of the columns. A statue has fallen Venus. You think, but her face is buried. Her arm reaches upward, like she's still pleading. You don't stop. You hear someone praying, loudly, desperately. Not to Jupiter, not to Minerva, not to any of the usual gods. Just, please, please, please. The ground moves again. Worse, this time it's not a tremor, it's a pull. Like the city itself is being unstitched. You fall, not hard, but enough to bite your lip and taste blood through the ash. A boy helps you up. He says nothing, just lifts, steadies, disappears. There's no room for thanks. You duck into a doorway, an old tavern you barely recognize now. The roof is sagging. The walls are weeping dust. Inside, 5 others huddle. 2 old women, 1 young man. A baker you knew once, and someone you don't know at all, clutching a clay figure of Apollo so tightly it cracks in their hand. No one speaks. You sit on the floor, back to the wall. You can hear it outside now. Not just the falling ash, not just the wind, something else. A sound like thunder being torn apart. A roar, and beneath it, screaming. Not close, not yet, but moving. You press your hand against the wall. It's warm. You close your eyes, breathe shallowly, and wait. Not for rescue, not for miracles, just for what comes next. Time becomes difficult. There are no clocks, no bells, no sun, just the rhythm of fear and the weight of breath between tremors. You don't know how long you've been in the tavern. Minutes, an hour. The air feels used, thin, as if everyone has already inhaled too much of everyone else's panic. The others don't speak, not anymore. The baker is the first to leave. He rises slowly, brushes ash from his arms as if preparing for a feast, and walks out the door with a kind of dignity you didn't expect. No one stops him. He doesn't look back. A moment later, there's a sound, a collapse, maybe a roof, maybe him. No one asks. You look down at your hands. They're shaking, coated in ash. Beneath the grey, your skin looks pale, translucent, like it belongs to someone else. Your fingers curl inwards, like they're trying to disappear. You try to think of names, people you loved, people you miss, but all that comes to mind are fragments. The girl who wrote poetry on her arms, the man with the sea-colored ring who never told you what he did, the boy who once brought you a fig and didn't ask for anything in return. They're out there somewhere, or not. You wonder how many people are still pretending this will end soon. You wonder how many are praying. You wonder who will be remembered. And then you remember the letter, still folded between 2 stones beside the fountain, inked in a trembling hand. You imagine it now, already buried, smothered in ash, a ghost of a message to a ghost of a future. You hope someone finds it, even if they can't read it. You stand. The others watch, but no one moves to stop you. Outside, the ash is thicker. The sky is darker. The noise is worse. Not louder, just closer. A kind of screaming that has no mouth. The sound of heat and stone and pressure uncoiling. The world trying to return to its beginning. You cover your mouth, wrap cloth around your face. It does nothing, but it feels like something. You walk, not far, just around the corner, toward your home, or what's left of it. The door is off its hinges, the roof sagging. Inside, the ceiling crack you used to trace with your eyes has split open. You don't go in. You kneel outside the threshold, press your hand to the step, and you whisper your name, not for the gods, not for the city, just for the walls. So they remember. You start moving again, though you no longer know where you're trying to go. There is no safety in Pompeii now. Not in the temples, not in the theaters, not in the homes that once promised warmth. Every stone feels temporary, every breath borrowed. The city is not breaking, it's unraveling, quietly, absolutely. You follow the crowd, not because you believe they know something, but because movement feels better than stillness. The streets are madness. People wrapped in wet cloths, shielding children, dragging goats, screaming names. Some carry gods on their backs. Others carry nothing. A man shouts that it's the end of days. A woman prays to Isis, her voice steady even as her eyes bleed from the ash. And the mountain gods, the mountain. You glance back, just once, and what you see isn't a peak anymore. It's a pillar, a tower of ash and fire and fury, miles high, crackling with red lightning. You didn't know ash could carry fire like that. You didn't know a mountain could open like a wound. The ground rolls again. Longer this time, you stumble into a wall. Someone else falls entirely. The screams rise like steam. You find your balance and run. Past the brothel where someone once carved poetry into stone. Past the garden where you first kissed someone and forgot their name. Past the fountain that still coughs up cloudy water, like it too is choking. You see a mother holding her daughter. The girl is still, too still. The mother doesn't know yet. You keep running. At the city's edge, the gates are jammed with bodies too many, too close. The guards are gone, or dead, or just done pretending they're in control. Some people make it through. Others turn back, coughing, bleeding, eyes wild. You hesitate. The crowd behind you presses forward. A surge of limbs and voices. You're carried with them whether you choose to go or not. The sky drops lower. It begins to rain stones. At first, small, pebbles, like hail, but sharper, hotter. The first one hits your shoulder. It burns through your tunic. You cry out. No one hears. More follow. You cover your head and push forward into the press of people, toward the gate that is both exit and trap. Someone falls beside you. You don't look. Someone grabs your hand. You don't know them. They hold tight. You don't let go. Together, you push through the bottleneck into the road beyond the city walls. The air is no better here. The ash thicker. The darkness total. But there is motion. You don't know if you're surviving. You don't know if there is anything left to survive too. But for now, you are moving. And sometimes, that is all that's left. Eventually, the crowd begins to thin. Not because people are safe, because they are too tired to keep going. You find yourself among fewer figures, now some slumped against roadside shrines. Others huddled beneath overturned carts, shielding themselves from the sky. The ash falls thick as snow, only heavier and crueler. It doesn't melt, it coats, it buries. The hand in yours is still holding tight. A boy, maybe 14, dirty-faced, blank-eyed. You still don't know his name. You never asked, he never offered. Together, you pause under a tree, or what used to be a tree. It's skeletal now, limbs blackened, leaves lost in the first wave of heat, but its roots still hold. And somehow, that feels like hope. You sit, you breathe shallowly, and you check what's still with you. A pouch at your waist, coins, useless now. A small flask of wine, warm, sour. You sip anyway. The boy gestures, asks, without asking. You pass it to him. He drinks like it hurts, then hands it back. You both say nothing. Silence is easier now. You open your tunic slightly and pull out the object hidden against your chest. The letter, folded tight. Ink, smudged, but legible. You almost left it behind. You meant to, but your hands remembered. The boy watches you unfold it. You read it silently. Just once more, to someone who will never read this, ... You smile. He raises his eyebrows, not questioning, just waiting. You hold it out. He takes it carefully, doesn't read it, but holds it like something sacred. You lean your head against the tree, feel the ash against your cheek, the heat in your lungs, the shaking that won't stop. The world is ending. But for this moment, this breath, you are not alone. And that somehow, feels like everything. The light is gone. There is no dusk, no nightfall, no stars. Only Ashtika now, almost liquid end. A darkness so complete it feels not like the absence of sun, but the presence of something older, something that predates light. You can't tell how long you've been sitting beneath the dead tree. The boy has stopped shivering. That scares you more than the fire, more than the tremors, more than the silence. Because even silence is a kind of noise. But stillness is what happens when things break completely. You nudge him gently. He stirs, not dead, not yet. You whisper something meaningless, a lie, maybe, or a kindness. He doesn't answer. He's still holding the letter. You rise. You're not sure why. There's nowhere to go, nothing to find, but your legs want to move. Maybe because it's the only thing they still know how to do. The boy follows, not because you told him to, because people follow fireflies in the dark. Together, you make your way toward higher ground, toward a hill once used for picnics and trysts, where you once lay in grass, counting clouds and pretending the mountain was asleep. Now it breathes fire. You don't look back. The air is choking now, thick enough to feel, to swallow. Each inhale is a negotiation. You cover your face. The boy does too. The road is littered with the unmoving shapes that used to be people. Some curled, some sprawled, some reaching. The ash covers them all, equalizes everything. Names do not matter here. Only shapes, only choices. You reach the top of the hill. From here, the sea is barely visible through the haze, just a smear of dull silver. And Pompeii ... Pompeii is gone. Not yet buried, not yet silent, but changed. A city in the process of being erased. You sink to your knees. Not from exhaustion, from reverence. You had a life there, not a perfect one, but it was yours. You want to mourn, to scream, to rage, but all you do is whisper. To the ash, to the boy, to the gods. If we are not remembered, were we ever real? The mountain answers with a sound like the earth breaking open again. You do not flinch, because there is nothing left to fear, only to witness. You don't sleep. No one does. Not now. Even if your body collapses, if your limbs tremble and your mind dulls, there's no sleep, only waiting. Only breathing and coughing and clinging to the idea that each minute survived might earn you another. The boy is curled beside you, head against your hip. He no longer speaks, but his hand still touches your robe, lightly, constantly an anchor or a question. You sit upright, spine like iron, watching the sky pour down white. It's not snow, it's the ash. Only now it's changed, thicker, hotter, laced with flecks of something sharp, glassy. You watch as it coats the hillside around you grain by grain, like salt across a wound. It dulls the world, flattens it. What once had color is now monochrome. The leaves, the road, the dead all cloaked. You wonder if this is what the gods meant when they promised cleansing. You draw a circle in the ash beside you. Just a small one, a child's gesture. No magic, no spell. Just the desperate mark of someone who wants to believe that this moment, this life, might be seen. The circle fills in moments later, erased, so you draw it again. You hear voices below the hill, not screams, soft, chanting. A group of people, faces covered, arms linked, are walking toward the city, not away. You blink hard, not sure if they're real. They might not be, but you see them bare feet in ash, mouths moving, songs you can't hear through the wind. They vanish behind a broken wall. You wonder what they're singing for. Mercy, peace, a quicker end. The boy stirs. You touch his head gently. He's warm, too warm. The sky flashes, not lightning, something else. A pulse, red and white, as if the mountain has begun to bleed light. You look down and realize you're bleeding too. Your hands, the skin cracked from heat, from dry air, from gripping too hard. It doesn't hurt, not yet. You press your palms together, not in prayer, in containment, as if you can keep the heat inside from spilling. The wind shifts, ash swells. The boy breathes out a cough. You pull him closer, and you close your eyes, not to sleep, but to remember. The smell of fresh bread, the sound of coins clinking in a cloth pouch, the heat of another body beside yours, once. You hold these like relics, because you know this will all be gone soon. And if nothing is remembered, then maybe, in some quiet, terrible way, it never happened at all. When the next tremor comes, it feels less like an earthquake and more like a sigh. Not from the mountain, not from the gods, from the city. Pompeii is giving in. You feel it beneath you, stones settling, beams surrendering, doorways curling into themselves. It is not violent. Not now. It is ... inevitable. Like an old man laying down in bed and deciding not to get up again. The boy wakes with a start. His eyes scan the dark, the swirling ash. He does not cry. He's past that now. You touch his face and feel how hot his skin has become. He's burning, not from the fire but from the air itself. From breathing too long what was never meant to be breathed. He tries to speak. You hush him, place a hand over his mouth, not to silence, to soothe. What words are left? You stand slowly, pull him up with you. He sways, but stays standing. You begin to walk again. There is no direction, only instinct. Like animals before a storm, you move. Through the white blindness, you pass what used to be gardens, now sunken under layers of silence. A statue half-covered riches from the ground as if climbing out of a dream. You pass a dog, curled, still, ash sculpting its fur into stone. You step lightly. Everything feels sacred now, not holy, just fragile. You reach the edge of what used to be the vineyard. Grapevines were thick here once. You'd walk past them in summer, smell the sharp green sweetness, hear the rustle of boys stealing grapes and pretending to be warriors. Now, the vines are gone. Only the posts remain skeletal rows marking what was, and through them you see others, moving, some crawling, some holding on to each other. A woman dragging a small wooden chest. A man carrying a birdcage, empty. Everyone has brought something. A last possession, a final sentence. You realize then that survival has become ... narrative. No longer about living, but about meaning. If we must die, then let it be while holding the thing that says, "This is who I was." You carry nothing now, not even the letter. You left it behind, buried, already, before you ever were. But the boy, he carries you, in his eyes, in his hand, in the way he walks beside you, step for step, without knowing why. You tighten your grip, and whisper not to him, not to the gods, to the ash, "Remember this." And it falls heavier, like it heard. You reach what feels like the end of the road, not because it ends, but because the city is gone, covered, unseen. What was once Pompeii is now texture hills of ash, black ribs of stone poking out at intervals like bones through skin. You stop walking, so does the boy. Neither of you speak. It is quiet now, in a different way. Not the stillness of before, not the hush before a storm kind. This quiet has depth, density, as if sound itself has given up trying to echo in this place. You sit down, gently, in the thick powder. The boy lies beside you. He breathes in, rasps, breathes out. You look around at what remains above the ash line. A fragment of fresco, a cracked amphora, the bent metal frame of a door you once passed every morning, never noticing its detail. You want to speak. You have so much to say, but language feels clumsy now, heavy, like lifting bricks with broken fingers. So instead you think it. Mother, I'm sorry I left the altar bare. Lover, I remembered your name too late. Friend, I should have said yes when you asked me to go with you. The regrets are not extraordinary. They are small, which makes them worse, because they were possible. You look at the boy. He is still awake. Barely. You whisper something meaningless. A lullaby from childhood, maybe. You don't remember the words, just the rhythm. You hum. He closes his eyes. Somewhere behind you, far away, there is a new sound, a crack, a groan. Not from the mountain this time. From the sky, you look up, and for one flicker of a second, the ash clears. Not completely, just a window, a breath, and through it, stars. You had forgotten stars. You didn't think they were still there. You take the boy's hand and lift it, pointing. He doesn't open his eyes, but his lips move. One word, you think he says, home. And then the sky closes again. Ash returns. But you keep holding his hand in the shape of that point. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels like the whole city is doing the same. The ash is heavier now. It doesn't fall anymore, it settles. With intent, with purpose. Every surface is blanketed. Every breath drawn is a cost. Your mouth tastes of copper and something sour, and when you spit, it comes out grey. The boy doesn't move. He's breathing, still. But each breath is shallower than the last, a tide that's run too far from shore. You press a hand against his chest. You feel his ribs. He was someone's child. Still is. You wonder if they're searching for him, if they think he's lost or saved. You look around. You are on what used to be the edge of the city. A road leading nowhere now. The hills beyond are obscured. The sea invisible. You could scream and no one would hear you. The ash eats sound, so you do not scream. You stay. You lean back, let your body rest in the soft dust. It catches you gently, almost kindly, a mockery of snow. You close your eyes, not to sleep, not to die, just to rest from the seeing. You feel your heartbeat. You listen to it. It is slower now, but present. Like Pompeii, still here, under everything. And it strikes you not like a revelation, but like something you always knew. This city was never silent. Even now it speaks, not in voices, but in weight, the weight of choices, of days passed unnoticed, of hands unheld, of meals shared without gratitude, of steps taken for granted on streets that will never be seen again. You open your eyes, you brush ash from the boy's face. It falls back again, immediately. You smile, weakly. Futile gestures feel good. The air is hot, the sky a strange shade of nothing. And yet, you breathe again. You hold the boy's hand, and you whisper a name. Not yours, not his. A name you loved once, a name you buried long ago. You speak it into the ash, because even if you cannot be saved, even if this is the end, you can still choose one thing. To be remembered, or at least to remember. The boy sleeps now. You think it's sleep, He's still breathing, though shallow, and curled into the crook of your side, like a question no one ever got around to answering. His fingers are curled against your tunic, his cheek turned inward to your ribs. You've stopped brushing away the ash. It returns too quickly, and you've grown used to its weight. It settles into the folds of your clothes, the bend of your neck, the line of your lips. You feel ancient already, like a statue half carved from fire and dust, like something someone will dig up someday and wonder about. You imagine that. The future, not in details, just in feeling. Someone, hundreds of years from now, walking where you sit now. Their sandals, whatever people were crunching against this same ash, hardened into a crust. Someone uncovering your home, your street, your name, maybe, if it was carved somewhere. If the letters lasted, what will they say? Will they understand what it felt like to wait beneath this sky? Will they know the boy's name? Will they know yours? You look down at him again. He stirs. His breath rattles, soft. You hold him closer. The world is almost gone now. The ash has erased its shape. You can't see the mountains, or the sea, or the gates. Just a smooth blanket that blurs every boundary. Pompeii has become a thought, no longer a place. And maybe that's what memory really is. Not preservation, but softening. You won't remember the cracks in the columns, or the names on the tavern walls, or the exact hue of sunset over the temple roofs. You'll remember the way the bread tasted that morning, the sound of sandals on wet stone, the way someone once whispered your name like a secret. You lean your head back and close your eyes again, not to sleep, to keep it all inside. Because the ash will take everything, but not yet, not this, not the shape of memory. At some point though, you don't know when the sound stops. No more thunder, no more tremors, no more groans from the earth or moans from the mountain. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't feel like peace, but like absence. The kind that says, it's over or it's pause. But either way, you're alone with it now. You open your eyes. The ash is still falling, but lighter. Not like a storm now. More like the last snow of spring drifting, not landing. You sit up. Your body aches in ways you don't recognize, as if your muscles are trying to remember what it was like to be unafraid. The boy is beside you, still breathing, his skin pale beneath the soot, his lashes rimmed with white. You touch his cheek. He doesn't wake. You don't try to wake him. You just ... sit. Pompeii, if it still exists, is somewhere under your feet. You cannot see it, but you feel it beneath layers of memory and fire and the silence of those who didn't make it past the gates. There are no other figures nearby now, just shapes in the landscape mounds that may be rubble or maybe people, or both. The world looks like it has been dusted with forgetting. You stand. Your knees tremble, your vision swims, but you remain upright, and you look around, toward where the forum once stood, toward where the mountain still looms, visible now only as a dark smudge through the veil of ash, toward the path that leads inland, away from the city where no one goes. The sky is a strange color, pale, like something bleached of meaning. There is no wind, no birds, not even the whisper of leaves. And yet, the world is not silent. It hums with memory, with grief, with the soft, low ache of everything that was once ordinary, and now is holy simply because it's gone. You press a hand to your chest. You are still here. You are still breathing. You look down at the boy. He is still breathing, too. You do not know what comes next. Not truly. But you know this is not the end. Because as long as someone remembers, As long as someone carries the weight of what was, there is something left to build from, even in the ash, even in the silence. Especially then, you begin to walk again. Not far, not fast, just enough to feel the movement, the slow grind of your bones against gravity, the resistance of a world that doesn't want to be walked through anymore. Each step is an echo, not in sound, but in feeling. The ash crunches beneath your sandals, forming shallow footprints that fill back in within minutes. Even your passing is temporary now. The world is swallowing you in real time. You pass a broken column, half buried, the capital just peeking above the grey surface like a memory surfacing uninvited. You remember touching it once. Warm stone under bright sun. Someone joked about how the gods must lean on it at night. Now it leans on no one. You pause at what might have been the edge of the garden district. A low wall, mostly intact, curves gently along a path that no longer leads anywhere. The wall is still painted, faintly traces of green, gold, and faded red. A vine, maybe, or a woman's hand. You can't tell. You touch it. Your fingers leave streaks in the dust. You whisper a word to the wall. It doesn't answer. But it doesn't need to. The boy stirs behind you. His eyes flutter open, dry and filmy. He doesn't speak. He just looks at you. You offer your hand. He takes it. Together, you move. There is no destination, only direction. Each ruined shape you pass is like a breath held in stone. An amphora cracked in two, but still upright. A bronze mirror, blackened, catching just the faintest reflection of your face, and a doorway half filled with ash, as though the building was inhaling when time stopped. You wonder what the ash is keeping, what it holds inside its weight. The laughter of a baker, the soft sigh of a sleeping wife, the sound of wine being poured for someone you never got to know. Pompeii is not gone, it is sealed. Wrapped in silence, yes, but not erased. You step carefully, reverently, as if every grain under your feet might be someone's last sentence. And perhaps it is. You stop at a small bench stone, mostly intact. You and the boy sit. You share the last of the wine. Bitter, warm, holy, now. He leans into you, his head against your shoulder. You close your eyes, and for a moment, just one, you imagine the city as it was. Not perfectly, just honestly. The noise, the mess, the way people argued over figs and water and gods. The way nothing was ever still long enough to matter, and everything mattered more than it should have. You opened your eyes, and you whisper, not to the boy, not to the gods, but to the ash itself. Please hold us gently. And for now, it does. It begins to snow. Not real snow, this is different. The flakes are soft, yes, but they don't melt. They land and stay, cling, layer. They are warm to the touch, then cool. They settle on your eyelashes, on the boy's hair. They turn everything into a memory before it's finished happening. You breathe through cloth, shallow and slow. The boy's breaths come in bursts to light. You can hear how dry his throat is, but there's no water left to offer. You have only your hand, your body beside his, and the hope that being near means something. The world has gone quiet again, and in that quiet, things become clearer, not louder, but more true. You begin to see the city not as it is, but as it was. The streets before the cracks, the forum with voices and sandals echoing on stone, the laughter from behind market stalls, the thick, salty smell of garum on the air. You picture the man who played music at the crossroads with a one-stringed lyre. The woman who painted her front steps with crushed shells to keep them bright. The boy who chased pigeons every morning and never caught a single one. All of it preserved in the falling silence. It's strange, you think, how the end of something can be so soft. No trumpet, no curtain pulled, no final word. Just this, the hush, the wait, the strange reluctant beauty of nothing moving anymore. You reach for the boy's hand again. His fingers twitch, then curl back around yours. You hold them there. You remember a line from a play one you saw years ago in the smaller theatre, the one for comedy and satire. The line wasn't funny though. It was meant as a joke, but it stuck with you. We are all statues pretending to be people. It didn't mean anything then. Now it means everything. You lean your head back and stare at the sky. It's pale again, the cloud of ash shifting, parting just enough to show the faint glow of something behind it. Not sun, not stars, just light. You think, this is what Pompeii will be now, not a city, not ruins, a silence. So thick it will take centuries to hear through it. But someone will. Someday, you look at the boy, and you say not loudly, not to shake the silence, but to nestle into it. If anyone finds us, ... tell them we stayed. You don't need to say more, because the ash is listening. You do not know how long you've sat there. The day, if it can be called that, has no shape anymore. Light and dark bleed into one another. The sky flickers between dim and less dim, like the final pulse of a candle before surrender. But time, as it once was measured in hours, footsteps, market bells is gone. There is only breath, and now even that is shallow. The boy leans heavier into your side. You can feel how his body pulls towards sleep, not the kind from which one wakes, the other kind, the soft slipping of a flame into smoke. You brush the ash from his cheek again, though it serves no purpose. It is a kindness, and you do it anyway. You whisper stories, not because he asked for them, because that's what people do when there's nothing left but waiting. They tell stories, even if they're made up, even if no one is left to hear them. You speak of a house by the sea, where the walls are painted blue and no one yells. You speak of bread that never burns, of a day where no carts break their wheels, no gods demand sacrifice, and everyone wakes with a full belly and clean hands. You say the words softly. The boy's breathing slows, still present, but slower. You keep talking. You tell him about the stars, the ones he hasn't seen since before the ash came. You name them as best you remember. He doesn't correct you. You talk about the moon, how it used to hang low over the forum, catching the edge of statues in its silver. And you talk about the mountain, how it used to be quiet, how it was always watching, and how maybe, just maybe, it remembers you too. When you stop talking, the silence feels full, not empty, not lonely, just full, as if the world is holding its breath with you. And then, in that pause, you hear a sound, faint, delicate, like a footstep in ash. You tense, but it's not fear, it's hope, wearing unfamiliar shoes. You turn your head, through the veil of white and grey. Shapes move, figures, people, not many, but walking, alive. One of them sees you, lifts a hand. You don't wave back. You just place your hand over the boy's, gently, as if to say, we are still here, and maybe, for now, that's enough. They come slowly, not in a rush, not like rescuers, not with ropes or shouts or orders, just ... quietly, shapes against the muted horizon, emerging like memories you weren't sure you were ready for. They are covered in ash, like you, faces wrapped, eyes red, no banners, no symbols, just people. One woman kneels beside you. She says nothing, just looks at the boy, then at you. She holds out a cloth clean, or at least cleaner than anything you've seen in days. You take it, press it gently to the boy's lips. He stirs, not much, but enough. Enough to remind you that the world, for all its endings, has not ended yet. Another figure hands you a skin of water. You drink first, just a sip, to be sure it's real, then raise it to the boy's mouth. He drinks too, eyes fluttering open, uncertain, like someone waking from a dream they don't remember starting. There are no questions. No one asks your name. You do not ask theirs. This is not the moment for names. This is the moment for breath, for choosing to stay alive. You stand. The boy beside you, leaning on your arm. He can walk, barely. You help him. One of the others nods toward the path they came from. Not a road, not really. Just a space between collapsed things. You follow. Behind you, Pompeii disappears. No fanfare, no music, no final scene. Just a city sinking into itself. Into silence. Into history. You don't look back, but you imagine it. The amphitheater, empty. The bathhouses cooled. The frescoes, still vivid beneath their coats of white. The statues, watching over no one. And beneath it all, layers of voices. The woman singing. The man carving birds. The baker cursing the dough. Your own voice. Your own steps. Still there, still held. Because the ash does not erase. It enfolds. It preserves. It remembers. And someday far from now someone will find it. They'll brush away dust, read names, decode gestures. They will wonder who you were. They will imagine the child beside you. They will speak of you as if they know. But they won't. Not really. Only you know what it felt like to breathe there, to live there, to leave. You walk now through the grey, toward whatever remains beyond it. And behind you, in the silence, Pompeii breathes one last time and rests. You follow the silent column of survivors for what feels like hours. There is no sun to guide you, no stars, just the thick, ashen sky pressing down like a second earth. The land is foreign, now familiar shapes, dulled by soot, hills melted into one another, the road reduced to suggestion. You walk because they walk, because standing still means sinking. The boy clings to you, his breath steadier now, though shallow. His legs stumble often, but he does not cry. You've never seen someone so young carry that much silence. You pass the edge of a field, or what used to be a field. The rows are gone, the olives burned. Nothing grows here anymore. But someone has placed a single coin in the soil, pressed down until only its edge glints through the grey. You don't stop to take it. You simply nod to it. Some prayers are paid in full. Eventually, the slope flattens. A rise in the land leads to a low ridge, and from its crest you see it, the edge of what was untouched. Beyond the ash, there is still green, pale, hesitant green, but real grass, shrubs, a tree with its limbs unburnt. You pause. The others begin to scatter, finding their own circles of space. Some kneel, some fall to their backs, staring at the sky as if they've never seen a color other than grey. You and the boy sit at the edge, not in the grass, not yet. You're not ready for color. You're not sure it's real. The boy looks at you, really looks. His eyes are sunken, but bright, alive. You realize you've never asked his name. You almost do, but you stop yourself. Because there's something sacred in not knowing. In surviving beside a stranger, not because of titles, but because of presence. You hand him the last drop of water. He drinks, Then he does something unexpected. He smiles, not wide, not loud, but honest. And in that smile, you see something you hadn't dared to name. The world didn't end, it changed. You sit there, side by side, two silhouettes washed clean by ruin. And you realize Pompeii is not just a place. It is what happens when everything is taken, and something still remains. You, this, a hand in yours, a breath not yet finished, a step waiting to be taken. You look down at the green below, and you think, maybe we build something here, not a city, not a temple, a beginning. It takes time to cross the boundary, the one between the ash and the grass. You sit at its edge for what could be another hour, maybe two, watching how the wind moves differently here, how the air carries fewer ghosts. You're not afraid of the green, but it feels ... dishonest, like stepping onto another planet without permission. The boy makes the first move. He stands on unsteady legs and walks forward only a few steps, then turns back to you and waits. You follow, and just like that, it changes. The world underfoot is soft, yielding, not cracked or scorched. The grass bends when you step, then lifts again, like forgiveness. You pass the first tree, then another. There are insects here, small, mindless, living. You hadn't realized how much you missed their hum. You sit beneath the third tree, and finally, finally, you exhale without coughing. The boy lies beside you, one arm draped across his chest, eyes closed, not unconscious, just resting, as if sleep has become a bridge instead of a trap. You glance back over your shoulder. The horizon is still there, still grey, still boiling faintly with the memory of flame. But you are no longer inside it. You made it out, not many did. You feel that truth settle on your skin more heavily than the ash ever did. Survivor is not a word that feels right. It sounds too heroic, too deliberate. You did not survive because you fought harder. You survived because the gods, if they were watching, were looking elsewhere. You close your eyes and try to remember your home, the scent of the courtyard at dusk, the sound of the neighbor's wind chimes cheap, out of tune, somehow perfect, the feel of worn stone under your heel as you turned the same corner every morning. You try to hold it all, but already it is slipping. You want to write it down, to mark it in the earth, but you have no stylus, no tablet, just your hands and the boy beside you. So you do the only thing left. You speak it aloud. You tell the grass about your street. You tell the wind about the baker. You tell the tree above you about the woman who wrote Lucia loves Primus on your wall. The boy stirs. You pause. He opens his eyes and whispers, "Tell me, too." And so you do. You tell him everything, not to teach, not to explain, just to keep the world from disappearing all at once. And as your voice moves through the green, it sounds less like loss and more like a seed. The boy listens, not with questions, not with commentary, just quiet, receptive presences, though he knows how important it is not to interrupt what's leaving you. You speak for a long time. You tell him about the smell of hot stones after rain, about the old man at the bathhouse who used to sing dirty songs under his breath, about the cat who lived near the temple and stole offerings like they were her divine right. You tell him about your mother's voice, your first job cleaning amphorae, the way the light looked when it spilled across the atrium floor, and when you run out of stories, he reaches over and touches your arm. He says, "My name's Sulfurous." You nod. You say your name back. It feels like a confession, like something sacred, like planting a flag in soil that still smokes from the fire. he says. My sister didn't make it. You nod again. You don't ask what happened, he says, but she had red ribbons in her hair, every day, even when she was mad at me. You hold that sentence like a gift. Neither of you cries. You don't need to. Instead, you both start gathering things. Not valuable things, just pieces. A curved stick that feels good in the hand. A round stone that looks like a face. A clump of moss so green it hurts. You begin stacking them gently, not for shelter, not for ritual, just to say, we were here. Sulfurous adds his sister's name, spoken once aloud, into the air above the stack. You place your own name beside it. You don't mark them in stone. You don't need to. They're already carried in the air, in the tilt of the earth beneath your feet, in the weight of what you remember. From somewhere nearby, you hear others, survivors like you, talking, laughing, even nervously, awkwardly. One voice is singing, off-key, too loud, exactly right. You don't go to them yet. You and Sulfurous sit at the edge of the clearing, in the sunlight, in the quiet, letting it all settle. And for the first time since the mountain opened its mouth, you feel hunger. Not the desperate kind, not survival, the kind that wants to taste again, to begin again. You both laugh when you realize it. The sound surprises you. It fits. You lie back, arms stretched wide in the grass, eyes open to a sky no longer covered, and you say, not to Sulfurous, not to the gods, but to the sky itself, let the world begin from here, and for once, no one disagrees. Later, someone calls to you, a voice across the grass clear, unsure. A woman with ash still in her hair and a baby tied to her back with a faded linen sheet. She asks your name, you give it. She nods, that's all, no further questions. It's enough here to simply say who you are and be believed. You and Sulfurous follow her toward the others. There are maybe 20 people gathered beneath a crooked fig tree. Some sit in circles, knees pressed to knees. Others work silently stacking rocks, clearing space, digging shallow furrows in the softened dirt as if planting will help them stay grounded. One man is sketching in the ash with a burnt stick. A map, maybe, or a memory. He doesn't speak, but you watch him draw a shape that could be a street, or a doorway, or the curve of someone's smile. No one here leads, but everyone moves. Food is past what little remains. A half-burnt fig, a strip of meat. You don't ask where it came from. You share it with Sulfurous. He eats with small bites, as if every one might vanish before it touches his tongue. A child begins to sing. The tune is nonsense. Something about a goat and a broken wagon. But it spreads people smiling in spite of themselves, lips moving, shoulders relaxing. You close your eyes for a moment, and in that darkness, you see the city again, not the ruins, the before, the painted walls, the bakery at first light, the scribbled graffiti near your doorway. You see the man who never spoke but always nodded, the woman who blessed every coin before spending it. You see a version of yourself stepping through a sunbeam, barefoot, half laughing. And then you open your eyes and look around. This place is not Pompeii. It never will be. But something is rising here, not from brick, not from mortar, from memory, from breath, from what the ash couldn't take. Sulfurous sits beside you, knees drawn up, staring at a beetle crawling across the dirt. He lifts it gently onto a leaf and watches it crawl away. That, you think, is the beginning of a city. Not walls, but care. And though your heart still aches with the weight of what is lost, you feel something unexpected stir in its place. Not joy, not yet. but the room where joy might live someday. You exhale and start to make space. That night, under a fractured sky, someone starts a fire. Small, weak. The flame dances like it's afraid to be seen, but it holds. Everyone gathers around it, slow and cautious, as if approaching something divine. Maybe it is. The first warmth that isn't borrowed from someone else's body. The first light, not born of catastrophe. You and Sulfurous sit on the outer edge. Not distant, just observant. The others talk in low voices. Nothing loud, no stories yet. Just pieces, half phrases, names spoken into flame. Someone recites a recipe for honeyed almonds. Someone else hums the tune that was sung earlier, correcting it softly. You look up, the stars are back. Not all of them, just a few, scattered like offerings across a sky still raw with smoke, but real. You point them out to Sulfurous. He names one, wrongly. You correct him, laughing. And for a moment, just that tit feels like you're not survivors, just people. You reach into your pouch. The coin is still there. You hadn't remembered keeping it. The one from the soil, half buried near the fields. You turn it in your fingers, rubbing away the ash. It's nothing special worn thin, the face faded, but it has weight. You pass it to Sulfurous. He rolls it in his palm, then nods solemnly, and without speaking, he presses it into the dirt by the fire. Not for trade, not for luck, just to say, this happened. Someone else follows suit. A shell, a comb, a bone needle. Slowly, a ring of objects forms around the fire things kept. Things saved, not because they're useful, but because they held meaning inside the storm. You find yourself standing, not sure why. And when you speak, your voice surprises even you. We lost everything. Silence, then, but not all at once. Someone murmurs agreement. Another nods. You sit again, closer now. You don't realize until later that your hand is still holding. Sulfurous's, not tightly, not out of fear, just ... Because the fire cracks, the sky breathes, and in that breath you feel something settle. Not grief, that will come again. Not peace, not yet. But continuity, like a thread caught between fingers. And you think, ash covers, ash chokes. But ash also preserves, and from what is preserved, we begin again. In the morning, if this can be called, morning light returns, not with brilliance, but with hesitation. A faint silver tint draped over the hills, slow and reluctant, like someone waking from a dream they're not ready to leave. You rise with it, not because you're rested, no one is, but because the body, somehow, remembers how to keep moving. The fire is down to embers. Around it, the offerings remain scattered, tokens ringed in ash. The coin, the comb, a scrap of woven cloth someone tied around a stone. Nothing labeled, nothing explained. Sulfurous is still asleep, curled under the remains of a stolen cloak. His face is half hidden, mouth slightly open, fingers twitching in dream. You place a hand on his back, feel the rise and fall of his breath, still here. You step away, toward the edge of the clearing. The grass beyond is tall and wild, unfamiliar. This is not farmland. It's land that hasn't yet been asked to serve. There are no paths, only instinct. You walk anyway. The others stir behind you. Low voices, quiet rustling, the ache of a group of strangers learning how to become something else. Not a city, not yet, but a pattern, a rhythm. You find a small rise and sit there, overlooking what might become the future. It's quiet, but not empty. Birdsong returns. Tentative, questioning. A chirp, then silence, then another like music being written in real time. The air smells less of sulfur today, more of soil. Damp roots, something beginning again. You close your eyes, and you think of Pompeii, not the eruption, not the running, before the ordinary. The woman who sold figs with too much pride, the chalky walls of your home. The neighbor who watered her plants while muttering to them like they were old lovers. The uneven cobblestones that always tripped your left foot. None of it was perfect, but it was yours. You remember your street, your doorway, that little patch of plaster where someone wrote your name in a hurry, then crossed it out and added a heart, and you realize the fire didn't take everything. It couldn't. It couldn't take the way you laughed when it rained and the roof leaked and you stood under it anyway. It couldn't take the smell of your father's hands after working with clay. It couldn't take the moment you first realized you were more than what the gods had planned. It burned stone. It stole breath, but it could not reach what you carried inside. You hear a voice behind you. Sulfurous. He says nothing at first, just sits beside you, blinking at the light. His face is cleaner today, less hollow. His eyes still carry the weight, but also something else. He points to the sky. Look, he says. You follow his finger. A flock of birds, small black shapes, in wide formation crosses the morning sky, sharp against the pale wash of color. Not flying away from anything, just flying. Sulfurous says, do you think they remember? You look at him, and you say, I think they carry it. He nods, and you both sit there, watching the sky, letting the warmth rise again in your bones. Not joy, not yet, but heat, and from heat, something like life. Later, you help gather stones. There's no plan, no architectural ambition, just hands searching the earth for what's not buried. Some stack them, 3 high, 5 high, no mortar, just balance. Others arrange them in circles. Some don't place theirs at all, just hold them. You choose yours carefully, not the largest, not the smoothest, just one that feels familiar in your palm, heavy enough to matter, light enough to carry. You set it beside the coin Sulfurous offered the night before. He's watching you, crouched low, picking at the grass. He's holding something what remains of that broken Apollo figurine, cracked down the chest, arm missing, still whole enough to mean something. He places it gently beside your stone. No words. There's comfort in not speaking. Pompeii was full of words, so many you couldn't hear your own thoughts over them. Here, in the hushed newness, there's space between everything, between the questions, between the grief, between the breaths. Someone calls out that they've found water nearby, a trickle, faint but clean. People move toward it, slow but with purpose. You go to, filling a shallow bowl someone's carved from driftwood, passing it to Sulfurous. He drinks. Then you can't remember the last time water tasted this much like a gift. Someone else laughs a short, strange bark of sound and then covers their mouth, as if it's wrong to laugh so soon. But no one shames them. Another chuckle follows, then a snort. And soon there's a string of uncertain giggles circling the clearing like a wind you didn't know was missing. You feel it rise in you, too. Not laughter, but ease. Not release, but readiness. Readiness for something that has no name yet. You glance across the clearing. 2 figures are kneeling, clearing soil with their hands. Not digging a grave, something else. A line in the dirt. Maybe a planting trench. Maybe a map. Sulfurous leans into you, chin against your shoulder. What will we call this place? You don't answer right away, not because you don't know, but because some answers deserve a pause. You turn the question over in your mind, not just a name, but what it must carry. Not Pompeii reborn, that would be a lie. Not new Pompeii, that would be a wound. Just ... here, now this. You reach down, draw a circle in the dirt around the bowl of water. Then you say, it doesn't need a name yet. It needs roots. He nods like he understands. You both stare at the dirt, and then gently, with small fingers, he presses a single seed into it. You don't ask where he found it. He doesn't say, but you both cover it in soil. And you sit there, waiting, knowing it might not grow, knowing it still matters to try. As dusk creeps toward the clearing, you feel the day settle its weight around your shoulders like an old shawl. Not oppressive, not unwelcome, just present, just real. There is no bell to mark the end of the day, no temple chorus, no marketplace shouting for one last coin. Only the slow quiet of people learning how to stop being afraid of the dark again. You and Sylvanus sit close by the fire, but someone's rekindled it with dry grass and luck. The flames are soft this time, not desperate. Orange and blue fingers dancing low over coals, humming something that feels like home. Around the fire, people speak now, only a few at a time. Someone tells the story of how they survived in a wine cellar, counting sips. Someone else, of finding their sister's sandal and carrying it, even though the sister wasn't with it. No one judges the stories. No one tries to make them larger than they are. Sylvanus looks up at you. Tell them something, he says. You're not sure what to say, not at first. Your memories feel too large, too hot in your chest. Like they'll come out wrong, or worse change, once they're spoken. But you do. You talk about the baths. Not the grand ones, the small ones near the edge of the city, where the water never quite warmed. Where people shared gossip and sweat and sadness without ever naming it. You tell them how once, in a caldarium filled with steam, a man started crying and no one looked at him. They just let him cry, let the steam hide his shame, and afterwards someone handed him a fig. You tell that story like it's a miracle, because, in a way, it is. When you finish, no one claps. No one speaks. But a woman across the fire nods, slowly, as if you gave her something she forgot she needed, and maybe you did. Sylvanus lays his head in your lap. He's listening, even in sleep. His fingers twitch when someone nearby begins to sing a lullaby from a land you've never been to, in a language you don't understand, but it's soft and sure, and it doesn't ask you to believe in anything except the act of staying. You watch the fire until your eyes blur. Then you look past it, to where the ashfield begins again, to where Pompeii sleeps beneath its own silence. You feel it, deep beneath your ribs. Not haunting, not mourning, just presence. It is not gone. It is not waiting to be found. It is keeping you company, like old friends who've said all they need to say. You press a hand to Sylvanus's hair. You whisper, they know. And the fire crackles like agreement, and the night lets you rest. The wind changes sometime in the night, not sharply, not with drama, just enough that the air no longer smells like memory, but like earth, soil turned by new hands, ash settling instead of falling. The kind of shift you only notice when you've been holding your breath too long and finally remember how to exhale. You wake to birdsong again, clearer this time, braver. 1, then 3, then a whole chorus too loud for a world that's supposed to be in mourning. Sylvanus is already awake. He's crouched near the small trench where he planted the seed. There's nothing growing there yet, but he watches it anyway, as if something might happen just from looking. You join him, and together, you do what no one else dares to do yet. You talk about rebuilding, not with tools, not with plans, with choices. Will we still bathe together? He asks. You smile. If the water's warm enough, will there be music? Yes, and bread. Not the burned kind, he laughs. Will the gods be welcome? You pause then. The kind that listen, yes. He nods. That's enough. You begin walking again. Not far, just through the growing perimeter of the clearing, where people are slowly staking out patches of earth. There are no walls yet, no boundaries, just intention. You pass a woman building a small altar out of river stones. She's humming something old, something sacred. Her hands are steady. You nod to her. She places a sprig of thyme at the top of the stones, then presses her forehead to them, just once. You pass to men, arguing not with anger, but with passion, over whether the old road can be cleared, whether it should be. One says it's a path back to something. The other says it's a trap. You don't interrupt. They'll find their own answer. You pass a child marking lines in the dirt with a stick, mimicking the layout of a house. 3 rooms, a garden, a door that faces the sun. You crouch beside her. Who lives there? You ask. She looks at you, then shrugs. I don't know yet. You nod. When you do, tell them they're welcome. She smiles and keeps drawing. You return to the fire as the day warms. Someone has brought fish. It smells burnt. It's perfect. People eat slowly, chew deliberately, as if tasting is sacred now, and maybe it is. You and Sulfurous eat together, cross-legged in the dirt, surrounded by strangers you already love, not because you know them, but because they are here, because they chose to stay, because they carry the same ghosts and the same beginnings. When the sun reaches its peak, someone begins telling a story not about Pompeii, but about the land beyond the mountains, about a city that never burned, where the rivers run backwards and the people live without doors. Everyone listens, not because they believe it's true, but because they need it to be possible. And in the telling, you feel it. The ground beneath you is not just ash, it is promise, it is foundation. It is the city beneath your feet, not the one you lost, the one you're learning to build. That evening, someone raises the first wall. Not grand, not ceremonial, just 4 flat stones leaned together, sealed at their base with clay scraped from the riverbed. It doesn't protect anything. It doesn't enclose anything, but it stands. People gather around it like it's a fire. Sulfurous is the first to touch it. He places his palm against the stone, eyes closed, as if listening. You follow. It's warm from the day, smooth in some places, sharp in others, imperfect, exactly right. Someone asks what it's for. The man who built it shrugs. For now, and that becomes the answer for everything. Why build here? For now. Why stay? For now. Why trust again? Why hope again? Because for now is enough. After the wall, others begin adding. Not walls, not yet, but pieces. A line of stones marking where a road might be. A patch of cleared earth where someone plans to grow lentils. A stretch of canvas hung between 2 trees, not shelter, but a sign that shelter is possible. You watch it happen like a time-lapse inside your heart. Something soft and impossible blooming where you thought there was only ruin. The city doesn't rise in a rush. It unfolds, hesitantly, kindly. You and Sulfurous sit on the edge of the new road, legs swinging, faces turned to the dying light. You're both covered in soot and dust, but the air is different now. Not heavy, not haunted, just full. of things that want to happen. He picks up a stick and draws something in the dirt. You recognize it immediately to stick figures, standing beneath a crooked roof, one tall, one small. You ask, "Is that us?" He shakes his head. "No." You wait. "It's someone later," he says. "Finding this place, seeing we tried." You nod, because that's what this is. Not rebuilding, not returning, but trying. And there is grace in trying. You lie back and let the stars return. Real stars, now, clear and full. The fire burns low nearby. The first wall stands behind you, and below, beneath everything, beneath the grass, the soil, the layers of grey Pompeii sleeps, still warm, still watching, not lost, just passed forward. And with each breath, each step, each fragile wall, you carry it. The next morning, the sky opens wide. No ash, no haze, just sky raw and blue, like it was scrubbed clean while you slept. The kind of blue that feels too large for a world still learning how to be small again. You wake to the sun on your face, warm, not burning, a light that doesn't hurt to look at. You open your eyes slowly, as if afraid it might disappear if you see it too clearly. But it stays. Sulfurous is already awake, sitting nearby, eating something flat and brown from a folded leaf. He waves without speaking, mouth full. You nod back, stretch your arms toward the new light. Your body aches less today, not because the pain is gone, but because the memory of escape is beginning to fade, leaving room for something else, something lighter. Around the clearing, the camp has grown. Not bigger, just more intentional. Someone has tied string between two trees to hang herbs. A pair of brothers are chiseling a groove into stone, shaping a trough. A woman face-lined, hands steady as, teaching a child to grind grain between two rocks. The rhythm of it echoes gently through the morning. You find a bowl of water, splash your face. You look at yourself in the reflection. You're thinner, dirtier. But there you are, still. When you return to the fire, Sulfurous holds out the rest of his breakfast. You take a bite. It's bland, dry, glorious. "We should give it a name," he says. "What?" "The city." You blink, look around. At the string of laundry drying in the wind. At the sleeping dog curled by the fire. At the map someone scratched into the side of a rock, showing paths that don't exist yet. It's not a city. But it's not a city either. "What would you call it?" you ask. He shrugs. "Something soft." You like that. You think about names, but nothing fits. Pompeii is still inside you, and naming something new feels like replacing it, and nothing can. So instead, you say, "Not yet." He nods. "For now." You nod. "For now, it's enough." Later, you join others in the planting ground. Someone has found beans. You help them set rows. Press seeds into dark, warm soil. It smells like life, like breath held and finally released. Sulfurous is beside you, patting dirt with his palms, humming a tune you've never heard. Or maybe you have, from the baths, from the baker, from a past that lives somewhere below your ribs. And as the sun climbs higher, as your hands grow tired and your shoulders brown under its light, you feel something strange rise in you. Not grief, not memory, not even hope. Something older, something deeper. The feeling of being exactly where you are. Not as a survivor, not as a witness, but as someone beginning. Someone choosing to stay. By mid-afternoon, the camp breathes like an animal, slow, rhythmic, alive in its own way. You can feel it in the way people move. Not with panic anymore, but with something closer to routine. Sulfurous is helping stack firewood. A woman nearby is mending clothes with a bone needle and thread unraveled from old sails. Two boys chase each other in circles that don't yet belong to any house, laughing too loud and falling too often. And for the first time since the eruption, you hear music. Someone has found a lyre. Its strings are damaged, one is missing, one is out of tune, but the melody that emerges is haunting in its imperfection. Thin notes wandering out into the sun, not asking to be heard, just offering themselves. You follow the sound, bowl of water in your hands, and sit nearby. The musician nods without looking up. He plays like someone remembering what his hands are for. The music draws others. They don't speak, they just come, sitting in circles, resting heads on shoulders, letting the sound stitch them together. You think of Pompeii, not the city, but the sound of it, the clatter of carts, the splash of baths, the shouting from the market at noon, the thrum of feet on stone. Even the silence had texture back then, a silence filled with waiting, with secrets, with prayers spoken under breath. Now, this silence is different. It listens. It doesn't demand anything from you. It allows. The music fades. No applause, just breath. Someone starts reciting names. Not in mourning, just ... remembering. They take turns, each person saying one name, a mother, a lover, a stranger they only knew by the curve of their walk, someone they saw once in the forum and never spoke to. You say a name too, the one you whispered into the ash, the one you carried here without meaning to. You don't explain it, no one asks. The names hang in the air like incense, invisible, persistent, sacred. Later, a group begins marking the edge of the camp with stones. Not to keep anyone out, there is no one else yet, but to say, this is where we are, this is where we begin. You help. Each stone placed is a sentence, not a wall, not a claim, a boundary of memory. At dusk, Sulfurous draws a sun in the dirt, with rays and a smiling face. He names it the old sun. Then beside it, he draws a smaller sun. The new one, he says. You ask what's different. The old sun burned, he says. This one watches. You look at his drawing, and you think, he's not wrong. The sky dims gently, and somewhere, beyond the trees, a wolf howls once. Then silence. No fear, just the world remembering itself. You close your eyes, and for the first time in so many nights, you don't dream of fire. Evening stretches long and golden. There are no torches yet, no lanterns, just the fire in the center of camp and the slow flicker of stars reclaiming their ancient posts. You sit near the warmth, legs folded, hands cupped around a bowl of broth that tastes more like smoke than anything else. Still, you drink it like it's holy. Beside you, Sulfurous draws constellations in the dirt. Not the real ones, his own. That one's a dog chasing a comet, he says. And that's a girl who carries the moon in a basket. You nod, studying the crude shapes. Where do they live? He shrugs. Nowhere yet, but they're looking. The way he says it, you believe him. You're surrounded by people who used to live in a place with temples on every corner, shrines tucked into walls, gods named for everything, grain, doorways, childbirth, shadows. And yet here, in this open space, with no marble and no altars, belief feels heavier, closer to the bone. Someone places a figure beside the fire, a small sculpture of, half melted. Could have once been Minerva, could have once been nothing. The woman who sets it down says nothing. She just bows her head. Another lays a stone shaped like a heart. Another a bundle of dried lavender tied with string. Soon, the fire is circled not with offerings, but with memories, not worship, but witness. No one prays aloud, but the silence around the fire becomes its own kind of temple. You remember how, in Pompeii, worship was often a performance. Here, it's an act of breath. You pick up a piece of burnt wood and draw a line in the dirt. Not a name, not a word, just a shape. Something that looks like the back of your mother's hand, the curve of your own footprint. Sylvanus adds a sun above it. Not the old one, the one that watches. Later, someone speaks. A voice low and steady. An old man with skin like dried parchment and eyes that have seen too many endings. We used to ask the gods to spare us, he says. Everyone listens. He leans forward, feeding a stick into the fire. Maybe now ... we should ask them to sit with us instead. No one answers. But around the fire, heads nod slowly. Because maybe that's all the sacred is now. Not power, not punishment, but presence. The night deepens. The stars sharpen. You lie back, shoulders against the warm dirt, eyes wide to the sky. And for the first time in your life, you don't feel watched. You feel accompanied. Morning doesn't come all at once. It filters in slowly, like someone nudging you gently from sleep, reminding you the world has kept turning even while you weren't ready. When you rise, you're surrounded by sounds. Not the roar of carts, not the clatter of amphorae, not the barking of market vendors. Quieter things. The slap of water against a new basin. A broom made of bound twigs sweeping a circle clear. The whispered counting of someone inventorying seeds to lentils, one sprouted. Sylvanus is already up, covered in dirt, face smudged and proud. I made a line, he says. He drags you by the hand to show you. It's a row of sticks, carefully placed, stretching from the edge of your sleeping place toward the clearing. What's it for, you ask? A road, he says. Not for carts, for walking. You crouch and touch the line. It's crooked. Some sticks are too short. One is actually just a thick root. It's perfect, and suddenly you're flooded with an ache for the things that used to feel small. Directions, boundaries, knowing where one thing ended and another began. You say, I'll make a gate. Sylvanus grins. There are no walls to connect it to yet. But still, you find two long branches, dig them into the dirt, and lash a curved bough between them. It doesn't keep anything in or out. But when you walk beneath it, it feels like passing from one world to another. People begin noticing. A young couple adds a string of beads overhead. Someone paints a spiral on one post with ash and water. A little girl ties a feather to the top. Later that day, someone leaves a note there, scratched into bark. It reads, "We are still learning how to live." You run your fingers over the words. They tremble under your touch. Around the fire that evening, stories start again, but now they're different. Less about what was lost, more about what's taking shape. A woman describes a dream she had of a city with no corners, just circles, soft and unbroken. A man talks about how he wants to raise bees again, how they'll forgive the silence if he waits long enough. You speak to, you tell them about your gate, about the road of sticks, about how walking through it made you feel like maybe, finally, you had arrived somewhere. Not somewhere new, not somewhere better, just somewhere ... true. Someone sings then, not a hymn, a lullaby. The kind that has no words, only hums. The kind that carries more than it says. You lie beside Sylvanus again, his head on your shoulder. And for the first time, You don't think about the volcano. You think about what tomorrow needs. A well, a roof, a second gate, a path lined with names not of the dead but of the living. And quietly, without saying it, you begin to believe this city will never need a name, because everyone who enters will already know where they are. The days begin to follow each other, not in haste, not in symmetry, just enough to start forming a shape, not a calendar, not yet, but a rhythm, a way the light falls at a certain hour, the time when birds gather near the water's edge, the hour when someone always burns the bread and everyone still eats it anyway. You wake each morning not with dread, but with questions. What will grow today? Who will come back from the edge of the woods? What will be remembered next? Sylvanus keeps building. His road of sticks has become a path of stone in heaven, absurdly long, curving for no reason except that he liked the bend. Others have followed it. Some have even placed small markers at its side drawings, broken tiles, pressed handprints into the dirt. One day he turns to you and says, "It leads to the hill." You look toward the distant slope where the land rises above the ash fields, where, if you stood high enough, you might glimpse the outline of what Pompeii used to be. "Why there?" you ask. He shrugs. "So people can see how far they've come." You can't answer, you just squeeze his shoulder. Because what else do you say to a boy who has mapped grief into something that can be walked? You spend the afternoon clearing a space for what might someday be a home. Not walls yet, not even a roof, just a circle. You mark it with stones, each one placed with a whisper, a name, a hope, a habit you'd like to keep. The shape begins to feel like something more than shelter. It feels like promise, like an answer waiting patiently in the dirt. Others join. Soon there are more circles, not a grid, not planned, but growing from each other, like mushrooms after rain. Some connect, some remain apart. All of them filled with lives, starting again. Someone starts making tiles, crude, misshapen, fired in a shallow pit, but they hold color. Someone dyes them with berries, with clay, with char. They begin to appear around the city in doorways, on stones, at the foot of trees, symbols, faces, hopes. A woman carves a laughing god into one and hangs it on a branch. Sylvanus paints a spiral on another, saying, "This one is for walking in circles on purpose. You make one too." You don't tell anyone what it means. You place it at the base of your gate, and every time you pass, you touch it. Night comes again. The fire is taller now. There are logs, benches, even a hanging pot for soup. The city doesn't hum yet, but it breathes. Not loudly, not perfectly, but deeply. You sit with Sylvanus and the others, passing bread and broth and stories back and forth like currency. Someone recites a poem no one has heard before. Another offers a riddle. Laughter comes easier now, so does sleep. And in the quiet moments before the fire fades, you look around at what's forming, at what's fragile and still unfinished, at what might one day be called a home or a haven or simply enough. You think about everything buried beneath you, and how, somehow, in all that ash and absence, something beautiful chose to grow. The ground is still warm, even now, even this far out. You notice it when you walk barefoot through the morning grass, dew on your ankles, silence curling at the edges of your sleeves. It's not threatening, not dangerous, just warm. A memory the earth can't quite let go of. Some people say it's the gods. Some say it's the mountains still alive, still watching. But you think it's just the world, remembering. Today marks something, though no one says it aloud. a shift in the air, a weight that feels lighter, as if the city has finally learned to stand without bracing for collapse. You see it in how people move shoulders, less hunched, laughter more frequent. Even the silence has changed its texture. It doesn't press down anymore. It lifts. Someone's building a kill. Someone else is laying the first proper floor, using scavenged tiles from a ruin nearby. A child is learning to write her name not in Latin, but in something new, something shaped by the way her hand wants to move. You pass the gate, run your fingers over the tile you placed weeks ago. It's worn now, sun-bleached, dust softened, but still there, like you. Sulfurous is sitting near the planting fields, surrounded by little green specks that shouldn't have survived, but did. Beans, wild herbs, even a fig sapling, defiant and thin. He waves you over, then points to a patch of earth that's been cleared. You should grow something, he says. You shake your head. I don't know how. He shrugs. Nobody did, until they did. So you kneel, you dig. You press something small and ridiculous into the dirt pit. A seed, you're not sure. Something you saved without knowing why. You cover it gently, like tucking in a child, and you whisper a name. Not yours, not his. One of the names from the fire. One of the ones someone recited without tears, like a spell or a promise. Sulfurous watches you, says nothing. Later, while the sun is high and the camp is hot with labor, you walk toward the hill. The path of sticks and stones has hardened into a trail, worn by dozens of feet, marked by dozens of hands. At the top, you look back. You see the curve of the city with no name. It has no walls, no senate, no forum, but it has doors and songs and mornings, and people who say things like see you later and mean it. Far in the distance, beneath layers of time and ash and forgetting, the shape of Pompeii still sleeps. But up here, all you can feel is breath. All you can see is what remains, and what insists on blooming. Not because the world is kind, but because it is unfinished, and you are part of its sentence, still being written. You return from the hill at dusk, not because you've seen enough, because you've seen just enough to understand you need to go back. Back to the city without a name. Back to the firelight and the half-sung songs and the laughter that doesn't ask why. You pass the new gate. Someone's added wind chimes, bones and shells and pieces of broken glass strung on a vine. They rattle gently, whispering nonsense in the breeze. It sounds like language. It sounds like trying. Sulfurous meets you with 2 bowls of something hot and unnameable. This one's mine, he says, handing you the better one. You take it anyway. He tells you someone made a decision. About the water path. About the stones. About how to mark the city's edge. We voted, he says proudly. I didn't understand the rules, but I said yes. You smile. There are rules now. Not many, just enough to protect what's growing. They aren't carved into marble. They're passed around the fire, written in laughter, in shared bread, in hands that hold without asking questions. After dinner, you walk the inner path together. There are signs now, painted symbols, not words. A spiral for the bath, a bird for the bakery, a rising sun for the well. No one owns anything here, not really. But people say my corner, our tree, his rock, her sleeping place, and the meaning is clear. Not possession, recognition. The city belongs to itself, to the ones who stayed, to the ones who remembered, to the ones who carried pieces of their broken homes into the clearing and laid them down like seeds. You pause at the planting field. The dirt you pressed your offering into days ago is cracked slightly now. A green sprout pushes through. You blink, you kneel, you touch it. It's small, stubborn, perfect. Sulfurous leans over your shoulder. See, he says. You know how, you don't speak. Not because you're overwhelmed, because you finally understand. This is not about survival. This is about choosing to live, choosing it again every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You stand, and from somewhere inside you, quiet, steady, certain, comes the realization. This city may never have a name, but it has a heart, and that is enough. The nights come gentler now. There's a rhythm to them, first the quiet, then the fire, then the gathering. People arrive with food, with scraps of fabric, with songs they thought they'd forgotten. No one calls it a ritual, but it is. The kind that grows out of silence, not law. You sit near the fire, Sulfurous tucked beside you, half listening as someone retells the same story they told 3 nights ago. No one interrupts. It's different now, longer in parts, quieter in others. That's how stories work. Here, they bend with the teller. They stretch toward truth, not fact. Tonight, someone passes around a piece of charcoal and a wide, flat stone. The idea is simple. Draw something that mattered. Something that didn't survive, but should have. One by one, people draw. A street corner, a comb, a favorite fig tree. Someone sketches the outline of a mouth, open in laughter. They don't explain whose. They don't have to. Sulfurous draws the first home he remembers. A square, a roof, a sun with too many lines. You add a flower pot to the window. He laughs and adds a bird to the roof. When it's your turn, you hesitate. Then draw a hand holding another. No names, no story, just the shape of comfort. The stone fills quickly. No one tries to keep it neat. When there's no space left, they begin another and another. They're not archives, they're echoes. After the fire dims, after the bowls are stacked and the children sleep, you stay a while longer, watching the stones. The stories scratched onto them. You think of the frescoes buried beneath the ash. Bright walls frozen in color. Lives paused in pigment. You wonder if they ever thought anyone would see them again. You wonder if these drawings will be found someday. If they'll understand what they meant. Or if they'll just see scribbles sun-faded and half-rist. You whisper to the fire, we were here. Not to be remembered, just to be real. Sulfurous is already dozing, head against your arm. You brush ash from his curls, gentle, slow. And in the hush of the night, in the breath between 2 heartbeats, you feel it settle. This city isn't waiting for the world to find it. It's writing its own truth. One bowl, one drawing, one sprout in the soil at a time. It doesn't need to be remembered. It only needs to be lived. The next morning is ... ordinary. That's what makes it strange. There's no omen, no smoke, no loud decisions. Just people rising slowly from sleep, stretching limbs, blinking into the soft amber light. Birds chatter above. A breeze lifts the corners of a tarp. The scent of something frying wafts over from the fire protrudes. Maybe, or wild garlic. You wake with the kind of stillness that feels earned. Sulfurous is already gone, off chasing some idea with his usual half-determined, half-distracted energy. You find a note scrawled in dirt near your sleeping mat, gone to the edge, back before the shadows. You smile. He writes like he's ancient. You wash your face in the stream that's been slowly carved into a narrow channel. The rocks are cool and slick under your hands. You drink deeply. The water tastes of copper, moss, and maybe hope. Around the clearing, things are moving, but without urgency. A boy and an older man are shaping clay for bricks. A pair of women are building shelves into a tree. One child is painting lines on the ground with a crushed berry, explaining that it's a map for bees. No one questions her. You find a patch of earth that no one's touched, and you start to dig. Not for something, just to make space. You don't know yet what it will be. A garden, a bench, a place for silence. You don't have to know. The dirt under your nails, the sweat on your brow, that's enough. By midday, someone calls a pause. They ring a bell, an old goat bell someone hung from a crooked branch. It means food. It means come. It means we are still here, and we want you with us. Everyone gathers near the fire. You sit where you always do. Someone passes bread. Someone else slices something soft and yellow that tastes faintly of nut and soil. The flavors are humble, but layered. The kind that only exist when people have stopped running. Sylvanus returns mid-meal. His cheeks are red, his clothes dusted white with lime or ash or adventure. He flops beside you with a groan. I found a cave, he announces. It might be a tunnel. It might be nothing. You ask, did you go in? He nods, just a little. I left a pebble. So it knows I was there. After lunch, no one rushes to leave. People linger, they talk. They argue about whether chickens are worth the trouble, whether to teach the children Latin or something new, whether to name the hill after someone or leave it blank so it can be whatever it needs to be later. You lie back in the sun, and you think this is a day with no disaster, and that, somehow, is a miracle. A day where nothing extraordinary happens, where grief sleeps, where nothing burns, where no one dies. A day like that, after everything, feels like proof. Not that everything will be fine, but that this, at least, was real, and enough. By twilight, a hush falls, again, but it's not silence, it's fullness. Like a room just after someone has said something true, and no one dares to speak over it. You walk the city with no name one last time before sleep. The city that isn't a city, that has no borders, no rulers, no anthem, but breathes like a body, moves like a memory, lives like something that almost didn't. You pass the gate you helped build. Someone has woven vines through it, dotted with tiny yellow flowers. You pass the well. Someone has placed a handprint. They're small, damp, recent. A claim not of ownership, but of care. You pass the kill, warm from a day of fire. A few crude tiles laid out to cool, marked with strange new characters, half letters, half guesswork. A written language no one has agreed on, but everyone understands. Near the fire, people are singing again. Not in unison, not on pitch, but together. One voice rises, then another. Some hum, some don't know the words, and make them up. A song stitched together from fragments of older songs, temple hymns, work chants, lullabies. Each note holding a name, a home, a hope. Sylvanus is there, lying with his back to the embers, watching the stars emerge. You lie beside him. He points to one. Do you think that's the same sky? You don't ask what he means. You say, yes. He nods, satisfied. You listen to the fire, to the voices, to the quiet between them. And you realize you're not waiting for anything anymore. Not for rescue, not for return, not for Rome, or gods, or justice. What you have is this, a city that grew from ash and breath, that was never built, only carried, that doesn't need temples to be sacred, that doesn't need history to be remembered, that exists because people chose, again and again, not to leave. The stars pulse. The fire cracks. someone laughs in their sleep. And as you close your eyes, you think, gently, let the world end again if it must. We will always begin. And in the dark, the city dreams with you. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing quietly in the dark, thank you. Thank you for drifting with me through the streets of Pompeii, for walking barefoot over ash, for staying long enough to see what comes after. If this story gave you something, a bit of calm, a memory of warmth, a breath you didn't know you were holding, then I hope you'll stay a while longer. Maybe subscribe to the channel so we can keep each other company on more nights like this. And if you feel like it, leave a little comment. Let me know where you're listening from or what time it is where you are, but only if you want to. No pressure, no hurry. You're always welcome here. For now, sleep well and good night.